Welcome to This Explainer. Okay, today we are unlocking something massive, a profound concept that absolutely has the power to completely transform how you view wealth and, honestly, your own potential. We're talking about awakening your financial genius. You see, acquiring wealth isn't some elite skill reserved for a lucky few. It's actually about finding the wealth that is literally hidden in plain sight. But to do that, we have to wake up a part of our brain that our traditional education system has, well, effectively put to sleep. There's this quote that just perfectly captures what we're digging into today. It comes from a seasoned Peruvian gold miner. When somebody asked him how he was so incredibly confident about finding a new vein of gold, he just smiled and said, "There is gold everywhere. Most people are not trained to see it." And he wasn't just talking about literal gold. This applies perfectly to real estate, the stock market, starting a business, you name it. A trained mind can walk down a standard street and spot 4 or 5 lucrative deals, while the average person walks down the exact same street and sees absolutely nothing. So let me ask you a critical question right now. Is your financial genius fast asleep? Because our culture has essentially hypnotized us into this rigid dogma. We're educated to believe that we just need to learn a profession so we can work hard, earn money, spend it all, and then borrow more when we inevitably run short. We're taught how to work for money, right? But we are so rarely taught how to have money work for us. If you're stuck in that cycle, your financial genius is just hitting the snooze button. All right, here is our roadmap for today. First, cultivating the right mindset. Second, the rule of self-discipline. Third, smart strategies for wealth. Fourth, a summary of key lessons. And fifth, what you should do next. Let's jump right into part 1, cultivating the right mindset and laying the psychological foundation for wealth. There are a few absolute must-dos to build this foundation. First, you need a deeper reason. If you just walk around saying, "I want to be rich," reality is going to crush that desire because the road is hard. You need a powerful emotional combination of wants and don't wants to fuel you. Second, you have to choose to learn daily. Your mind is your only real asset, so invest in seminars and books way before you invest in stocks. Third, associate carefully. You've got to actively avoid the Chicken Littles in your life. The people who are always crying that the sky is falling and trying to talk you out of taking a risk. Fourth, master fast learning formulas. Working hard for money, that's an old caveman formula. You need to learn a new recipe for making money, master it, and move on to the next. And finally, emulate your financial heroes. When you analyze a deal, just ask yourself, how would Warren Buffett look at this? Acting with the bravado of your heroes is actually a massive form of power learning. Moving on to part 2, the role of self-discipline, which really is the ultimate delineating factor. When we look at how the wealthy handle their cash flow, it's fascinating. When income comes in, it flows directly into the asset column first. They invest it or save it to create more money long before they ever pay their monthly expenses. Even when financial pressure mounts and bill collectors start calling, they defend their assets like a fortress. They actually use the intense pressure of unpaid bills to inspire their financial genius to go out and figure out a way to make more money to cover the expenses rather than just liquidating what they own. Now, contrast that with the classic middle-class trap. Money comes in as income, and it flies straight out as expenses. It completely bypasses the asset column. They pay everyone else first, the landlord, the government, the credit card companies. This lack of internal fortitude basically means they let the world push them around. And here's the harsh truth. As long as your cash flow operates like this, you will remain trapped in the rat race, no matter how much your salary goes up. Okay, part 3, smart strategies for wealth. This is where we execute your financial intelligence. Let's talk about professionals for a second. A poor mindset looks at a real estate agent or a stockbroker and deeply resents that 3 to 7% commission. They'll try to sell their house by owner just to save a few bucks. But the rich mindset, they absolutely believe in paying professionals well. Why? Because we live in the information age. A good broker is literally your eyes and ears out in the market. They're out there every single day finding the deals that you simply don't have the time to look for. If they're making you money, you should want them to be paid exceptionally well. Next up is a crucial concept known as the Indian giver principle, which is really just a memorable way to think about return on investment or ROI. When the wealthy invest, their very first question is always, how fast do I get my money back? The goal is to put money into an investment, pull the initial capital back out as quickly as possible, and be left with a cash-flowing asset for free. Imagine buying a foreclosure condo, renting it out to winter vacationers, and recouping your entire purchase price in just a few years. After that, your initial money is right back in your pocket to invest again, and you still own a condo that pumps out monthly cash. That is the goal. To really hammer home just how rare this kind of financial intelligence is, consider this scenario. If you give 100 people $10,000 at the start of the year, what do you think happens? Well, shockingly, 80 out of those 100 people would have absolutely nothing left by the end of the year. Zero. In fact, a lot of them would be in even greater debt because they use that 10 grand as a down payment on new liabilities, a fancy car, a massive holiday, or a huge new TV. They just completely lack the focus to direct money toward making more money. But then, contrast that massive group with this incredibly tiny number, 4. Out of those exact same 100 people, only 4 would have the financial intelligence to increase that $10,000 to $20,000, or even snowball it into the millions. They do this by relentlessly focusing on the asset column. If they want a luxury item, like a new Porsche, they don't go buy it on credit. They use that burning desire to motivate their financial genius to buy an asset that will generate the cash flow to pay for the Porsche. And that brings us to the final strategic law: teach and you shall receive. This is all about the power of giving. If you ever feel needy or short of money or sales or even contacts, the strategy is to give what you want first. I know, it sounds totally counterintuitive, but breaking the dam by giving away a little money or sharing your knowledge generously with others creates this profound principle of reciprocity. It quite literally opens up a torrent of new ideas and bounty that comes rushing right back to you. Which brings us to part 4, a summary of key lessons outlining the 10 steps to wealth. To quickly distill everything we've talked about, here is your complete map. 1. Find a deep emotional reason. 2. Choose to feed your mind daily. 3. Pick friends who actually talk about wealth. 4. Learn new formulas quickly. 5. Pay yourself first always. 6. Pay your professionals well. 7. Get your initial investment back fast. 8. Use assets to buy your luxuries. 9. Emulate your heroes. And 10. Give to receive. Finally, part 5. What you should do next. Let's talk about taking immediate action. I want you to walk away with a strict 4-step checklist of what to do right now. First, grab a piece of paper tonight and physically write down your deep emotional wants and don't wants. That's your fuel. Second, make a choice with your time today. Turn off the TV and go buy a business book or sign up for a seminar. Third, look at your income this month and literally redirect a portion of it straight into an asset or savings vehicle before you pay a single bill. Let yourself feel that pressure and use it. And fourth, find a friend and teach them just one concept you learned from this explainer today to trigger that amazing cycle of giving and receiving. So I want to leave you with this final provocative thought. Take a really close look at how you spend your days and exactly how your cash flows. Are you simply working for money just to turn around and pay everyone else? Or are you aggressively building an asset column so that your money works for you? Your financial genius is in there, I promise you. It is time to wake it up. Thank you so much for joining me, and I'll see you on the next explainer.
Welcome to This Explainer. I am so pumped you're here with us today because we are tackling something that's, quite frankly, a real game changer. You can study money all day, you can read all the books, you can become completely financially literate, and yet still not hit that level of wealth or financial independence you've been dreaming about. Why is that? Well, it's because financial literacy alone just isn't going to make you rich if you don't defeat 5 specific, deeply ingrained internal barriers. Okay, let's dive right into this and uncover exactly what's been holding you back. Check out this quote right here. I think it hits the nail right on the head. Look, everybody deals with fear. I don't care who you are. Literally nobody actually likes losing money, right? Even the richest people on the planet have a deep fear of losing their capital. But here's the absolutely crucial point. It's how you handle that fear, how you handle losing, and how you deal with failure. That right there is the true dividing line between the rich and everyone else.
So here is our visual map for today. We're going to break down these 5 psychological hurdles. Number 1, overcoming fear. 2, conquering cynicism. 3, curing laziness. 4, building better habits. And 5, overcoming arrogance. And then stick with me for number 6, summary and action plan, because at the very end, I am going to give you a concrete playbook to completely bulldoze these roadblocks once and for all.
All right, let's kick things off with roadblock number 1, overcoming fear, and what we call the Texan mindset.
You know, the absolute biggest reason folks don't find financial success is simply because they play it way too safe. They end up whimpering over small losses instead of actually thinking big. The Hall of Fame quarterback Fran Tarkenton, he said it perfectly. He said, winning means being unafraid to lose. It's kind of like the whole attitude in Texas, right? In Texas, everything is bigger. When they win huge. But when they lose, oh man, it is spectacular. But the secret is, they don't bury their failures. They actually get inspired by them. I mean, think about the Alamo. That was a massive, devastating military defeat. They got totally crushed. But did they run and hide? No way. They used it as a massive rallying cry. Remember the Alamo. Or even think about Pearl Harbor. That was a heartbreaking loss, but it became the exact reason America rose up to win and emerged as a global superpower. The takeaway here, failure inspires winners, but failure defeats losers.
So what does this actually mean for your investments? Well, over 90% of people are basically playing not to lose. They go to financial planners and get this super safe, highly balanced portfolio. And hey, if you are genuinely terrified of risk, that's totally fine. But if you do that, you absolutely must start incredibly early so compound interest can do all the heavy lifting. But what if you are playing to win? Well, if you're playing to win, you can't really be balanced. Think about it. Balanced people just stay in one spot. Even to take a single step forward, you literally have to throw yourself slightly off balance. Winners put their eggs in a few carefully chosen baskets, and they focus, F-O-C-U-S, follow one course until successful. They actively push through the weak spots, kind of like how General Patton focused his tanks to break enemy lines, instead of spreading them all out into this thin, totally weak line.
Moving right along to roadblock number 2, conquering cynicism, or as I like to call it, frying Chicken Little.
Look, we all have this little Chicken Little inside our heads constantly screaming that the sky is falling. But there is a massive difference between a cynic and a winner. Cynics criticize, and that criticism literally blinds them to what's possible. Winners, on the other hand, analyze, and analyzing opens your eyes to actual opportunities. Let me give you an example. Let's say you bring up real estate investing. The cynic immediately shuts it down. They say, I don't want to fix toilets, right? They let the mere thought of a broken toilet completely block their path to financial freedom. But the winner analyzes the situation. The winner says, well, I definitely don't want to fix toilets either, so I'm going to shop hard and find a fantastic property manager to do all that for me. Boom, problem solved, and the cash flow is secured. Those pesky I don't wants actually hold the key to your success, but only if you analyze them instead of just complaining.
1009. Let that number sink in for a second. At age 66, living on this tiny little Social Security check, Harlan Sanders drove all around the country pitching his fried chicken recipe. He was rejected 1,009 times before someone finally told him yes, and he went on to become a massive multimillionaire right at the age when most people are just giving up and retiring. So next time you feel a wave of doubt creeping in, just remember Colonel Sanders. He took his inner Chicken Little and he literally deep fried it.
Okay, up next is roadblock number 3, curing laziness and tapping into the power of greed.
You know, the most common form of laziness today, it isn't just lying around on the couch all day. It's actually staying constantly busy just to avoid facing your financial reality. People stay super busy at work. They stay busy binge-watching TV, busy running endless errands. But deep down, they know they're just hiding. So what's the cure for this busy laziness? Surprisingly, it's a little bit of healthy greed. It's about tuning in to everyone's favorite radio station, WIIFM. What's in it for me? And the very first step is replacing a truly terrible excuse with this one brilliant question. How can I afford it?
See, when you just sigh and say, I can't afford it, your brain simply shuts down. It completely stops working. Plus, it creates this awful internal war because your human spirit knows you can achieve things, but your lazy mind is just defending the lie that you can't. And that just leads to feelings of helplessness and sadness. But when you flip the script and ask, how can I afford it? You forcefully crank your brain open. You force it to actively search for answers. That creates excitement, it opens up possibilities, and it sparks this dynamic, hungry spirit that finally gets you off that endless treadmill of busy laziness.
Let's roll into roadblock number 4, building better habits and the absolute must-do rule of paying yourself first.
It's a hard truth, but our financial lives are a reflection of our daily habits far more than whatever formal education we got. I mean, if you want to look like a bodybuilder, you literally have to hit the gym, right? The exact same concept applies to building wealth. Most people do this entirely backward. They pay everyone else first, the government, the credit cards, the landlord, and then they try to pay themselves last with whatever sad pennies happen to be left over. Winners do the exact opposite. Step 1, they pay their own asset column first. Step 2, now, because they paid themselves first, they might actually come up a little short for taxes or their creditors, and they're going to feel the immense pressure of those big bullies knocking at the door. But here's the genius part. Step 3, they use that fear and that pressure to motivate themselves to hustle. They start a side business, they figure out a new investment, they go out and create brand new income. Working your way through that pressure is exactly like lifting heavy weights in the gym. It builds up your mental money muscles. If you pay yourself last, you're basically acting like a 98-pound weakling, just letting the bullies kick sand in your face forever.
And that brings us to our final psychological roadblock. Number 5, overcoming arrogance, the battle of ego versus ignorance.
Have you ever noticed how people will constantly bluff their way through conversations with an accountant or a broker? They bluster and throw around buzzwords just to hide the fact that they don't actually understand what's going on. That's because arrogance is really just using your ego to try and hide your own ignorance. But here is the brutal bottom-line truth. What you know makes you money, and what you don't know loses you money. Whenever you let your arrogance convince you that what you don't know isn't a big deal, you lose, every single time. So the moment you realize you're a bit ignorant about a certain financial subject, you've got to drop the ego immediately. Go find an expert, pick up a book, watch another explainer, and just get yourself educated.
All right, we've made it to Section 6, our summary and action plan. This is exactly what you need to do next.
Let's do a quick recap of what was said in this lesson, because remember, the absolute greatest threat to your wealth is your own internal dialogue. We learned that fear will completely paralyze you if you play life just not to lose. We saw how cynicism and all that external noise will blind you to the amazing opportunities sitting right under your nose. Laziness? Well, that's going to disguise itself as staying busy, just to keep you from facing your finances head-on. Bad habits will have you prioritizing paying the government and your bills way before you ever invest a single dime in yourself. And finally, arrogance will simply mask your financial ignorance, which ultimately drains away your hard-earned money.
So what should be done? What's the playbook? Well, here is your concrete action plan. If you are totally terrified of risk, okay, don't change your personality, but you absolutely must start investing early. If you actually want to win big, you've got to focus your portfolio instead of just safely, thinly balancing it. When you run into a hurdle, you need to stop criticizing and start analyzing. If you hate fixing toilets, go hire that property manager. Starting right now, I want you to completely banish the phrase, "I can't afford it," from your vocabulary and force your brain to answer the question, "How can I afford it?" Build that mental muscle to pay your own asset column before you pay anyone else. And finally, the very second you realize you don't know something, drop the ego and get educated.
As we wrap this up, I want to leave you with one final, incredibly powerful question. Are your doubts more important than your freedom? Really think about that for a second. Are you going to just let that Chicken Little inside your head win? Or are you ready to take action, smash through these roadblocks, and actually build the life you deserve? Because at the end of the day, the choice is entirely yours. Keep learning, keep analyzing, and I will catch you on the next explainer.
Well,